This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
My hope is, hey, with everything going on in the world right now, let's just take this moment to put fear aside, put our feelings aside of the divided states of America, and to root for our athletes and for our country. Hey everyone, I cannot believe that somehow we've just crossed the threshold of 250 episodes. And over the course of those 250 episodes, almost every single time we've done a podcast, I've brought on a guest, brought on my partners, brought on my kids, brought on a 100-year-old man at our 100th episode. And you just try to always bring on the right people who can just let us into their lives. And again, the intent is to give you value from these conversations. And yet in the last 5 years of doing the podcast, I have tried to stay in my lane, know your role, right? And be a podcast host. If you follow the show, then you know my job is to stay out of the way. I try to pepper in some commentary where it makes sense, but really it's an extraction of value from the guest. And here we are, as we've crossed the 250 threshold, and for the first time, I figured it was time for me to step out and share a little bit of my point of view. This is going to be a shorter episode. You're stuck with me. And I figured just wanted to share a little bit about where we are as a country, a little bit about what life is like for me as I go around the country and now the world. In some places, I'm going to share a little bit about where I'm going in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, basically share what life is like when I'm a podcast guest on someone else's show. So again, shorter episode, hopefully still bring in some value here, but this is definitely a different type of podcast. And maybe it's a good place to start by knowing your role. We talk about knowing your role in sports a lot, just like, me knowing my role as a podcast host and staying out of the way. But here, I'm a little bit worried about the United States, and do we know our role in the world right now? Again, I don't like turning this into a political conversation, and that is not the plan. But as a guy that studied brand all these years, you can't not talk about the way the U.S. is being positioned overseas, and here in the divided states of America. So here goes nothing. Figured I'd start by sharing I have a wild 3 weeks in front of me. I leave on Wednesday for Canada. This is a shock to the system because the last I checked, it was 4 degrees there. Way to go, Ryan. Way to go from, I think I was running outside yesterday on the soccer field to let's get the big puffy jacket out. And it's planes, trains, and automobiles to get to central Canada, Winnipeg. And so that's where I'm heading. And my biggest fear is actually not the meeting I'm sitting in on. I was invited by a CEO of a company to bring my courageous and honest self on helping them think through next moves for their business, which is a pretty cool place to be because I get to just come in and consult and provide perspective. And for those of you who have never worked with the consulting side of our business, when we talk about courage, at this point, you've heard the definition of knowledge plus faith plus action, but each of those levers stands for something. So the output of knowledge is, our job is to bring unique perspective. Sometimes you're so close to your business or the world you're in. We get to see lots of verticals and lots of businesses, so we're bringing that outside perspective. On the faith side, on the field side, especially now, I think we're feeling a little freaked out about everything that's going on in the world. And so, yes, inspiration matters. Bringing a little bit of motivation to the table is the output. And then on the action side, often it's, there's a lot of talk about change, but when it comes to change itself, who's helping you actually change? What's the accountability component of that? So we get brought in to hold leaders and teams accountable. Like, hey, are we doing what we said we were going to do? So on this one, my fear of going to Canada is not anything that's going to happen over the course of the 36 hours that I'm up there. It's only the 1 hour of, am I actually going to get into the country? Like, will they take Americans up there? Maybe that seems absurd to you, but my fear is literally being at the border and being sent away because they've just had enough of what's going on down here. It is a tricky time right now. Trust seems to be at an all-time low. Pulled up some numbers here on the U.S. Just 17% of Americans say they trust the federal government right now. It's the lowest level it's been in nearly 7 decades. This is a poll that went out. Trust in the media, I think we've known it's been low. It's at 28% of Americans that trust the newspaper, TV, and radio. This is down sharply from around 70% in the 70s. Another one that's crazy is 55% of U.S. adults say most people can be trusted, and 44% say most people can't be trusted. I mean, it is a complicated time where, we used to joke when somebody in social media, anonymous 27, would talk over us, but now it's as if we're all talking over each other, and we can't even have real human conversations. So yeah, this week I go to Canada, and I'm most nervous about getting in and getting back. And then next week I have the luxury of, I'm going to Italy for the Olympics. I'm going with Jaelin, who was on the show, and her family. And, from a performance standpoint, like, Jaelin has put in the work, and now it's time for her to go deliver the love, which of course is her mantra. It's cool. She has DTL on the back of her helmet. That's an anchor that she turns to before she goes and delivers the love. A little inside baseball with Jaelin. I always think it's good for a brand to have an enemy, or a person to have an enemy. It's not who's your enemy, it's what's your enemy. And in this case, for her, like is the enemy. Like is the enemy of love. And she doesn't want to just like the run she puts down. She wants to love the run she puts down. Just like you don't want to like the person you're with, you want to love the person you're with. Or you don't want to like, oh, what'd you think of that movie? Yeah, I liked it. It's you're kind of tricking yourself versus you actually loved it. So Deliver the Love is next week in Italy. And one of the conversations I've had with myself, I don't think there's going to be an issue for me getting into Italy, but I do have, again, some fear walking around wearing a USA beanie and hat in Livigno, which is right by Switzerland. And again, I'm speculating a little bit here, but it is my truth. This is one of my fears. By the way, it is really hard to get to Italy from San Diego. I know there's no poor me. I'm really looking forward to this adventure and this experience. But again, just from a brand standpoint, just very concerned about what is it going to take to actually unite the United States of America. One of the thoughts I had, and this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, was the power of the World Cup. And the World Cup is coming to America. Many of you know that I've had a front row seat to help Landon Donovan write his memoir, which comes out in the first week of April. And this weekend I was just doing what a lot of us do, is I had a moment where I could scroll the internet and found myself watching a clip from England, and it was a pretty high profile soccer personality who wants to boycott the World Cup. Said pretty much this that the U.S. has made it not about soccer and everything that's going on here. And again, like, do you think I enjoy this part? This is like, I feel like I'm being an energy suck on your ears right now, but it is a fact that the perception of the country, it hurts me as an optimist. Okay, this is a lot, right? This is a lot to start with, but this is some of the things that I'm thinking about. And how do we actually change that? Also, the last time, the last two times I can remember, and I'm definitely dating myself and showing my age on this, that we were truly the United States of America was when George Bush threw out the first pitch in Yankee Stadium after 9/11. And he walked out there, and I was at that game, and it was wild. It was amazing, and you could feel the energy. And it's sort of sad that it took a tragedy of that magnitude of 9/11, which is now 22 years ago, to feel like, wait a minute, no, 25 years ago. Gosh, 25 years ago. To feel like really that's the last time we were truly the United States of America. And the other one was, and I probably wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for the Landon Donovan project. And this one probably doesn't have total national appeal, but for those of you who remember, who do like men's soccer, when Landon scored in extra time against Algeria, there's still an awesome YouTube clip that shows the tension of those few minutes in bars across the country. And it didn't matter if it was a red state bar or a blue state bar. There was shots from Kansas City. There was a shot in Louisville. There's a shot in a New York City bar, and people are watching, and they're nervous. And then Landon scores, and the place goes bonkers. So how do we turn this into a positive? One, in the next 10 days, we're going to have some of our best athletes here in the States, like Jaelin, who have committed decades of their lives to go compete. Jaelin specifically, if you heard the podcast from Jaelin Kauf a few weeks ago, she's an aerial mogulist. Until this Olympics, her sport, she's basically training 4 years for 30 seconds. It's mogul, 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 flip, mogul, 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 flip through the finish line. I mean, 4 years of nobody watching her in the darkness, committing every day for 30 seconds. And the last Olympics, which had no fans because it was in China and it was COVID, on the other side of the clock. So I think her event was like at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. So that's a lot of commitment and sacrifice to go do what you do. But one of the things I'm choosing to do is clearly going to be tuning in. I love the stories of our athletes, and I hope during this month, this is the optimist in me. I hope during this month that it gives us something to smile about, that it brings some energy for us, that we can root for these amazing humans who have sacrificed, and they all have a story. And I think NBC does such a great job of articulating those stories. So my hope is, hey, with everything going on in the world right now, let's just take this moment to root for our athletes. February 6th is the day when we've got the opening ceremonies. Italy is so spread out. I think it's the first time they're all not entering a stadium together. It's all over the country. And I'm making the choice to put fear aside, put our feelings aside of the divided states of America, and to root for our athletes and for our country. And I can't wait. And I can't wait to be, I know this is almost like blasphemy, folks, but patriotic again. And I think patriotism is a very polarizing word right now. I'm thinking of my partner, Billy Collins. One of the exercises we do when we start with a leadership team is we'll look at values and anti-values, and we'll give them a list and ask them, hey, when it comes to your work on the value standpoint, what words pop? And you'll hear, shock, you're going to hear integrity. You might hear something like, we value collaboration. And these are some of the table stake values that we hear first. But then on the anti-values, which is like, well, what are we not? The amount of times we've heard that patriotic that shows up on the anti-values list. And I don't think it's a knock, like a State of the Union knock. I just think it's not really a word that people turn to. So, hey, okay, moving forward, this Olympics, you have all of me. I am so excited, not just to be there. If I was staying here, I mean, I'm only going to be there for the first 10 days of the Olympics, but and the other thing is I'm flying to Milan, and then I got to take a shuttle. It takes like 5 hours to get to Livigno, but I fly out of Milan, and the plan is to go be at a USA hockey match. So I believe it's USA Germany. It's the third prelim game. I will be there. I can't wait to root for them. So even though I talk about my fear of walking around rooting for the US, I'm doing it. I'm 2 feet in. I can't wait. All right, let's say that that this talk of the U.S. or hits you the wrong way. What I kind of want it to end this little, we'll call it a rye rant. This little rye rant with is a formula that you can use to get control of a situation. And first thing I'm thinking about with control, and shout out to Susie Burke, who's a PhD and my partner on Head of Mentals. One of the things we talked about in Head of Mentals was what your monster in your mind feasts on. What is a monster fuel that's sort of forces negative self-talk, and overthinking is one of them, right? If you are overthinking, then maybe this little formula can help. But the idea of overthinking is when your brain is trying to get control of an uncontrollable moment. And imagine your brain is a phone battery, and it's like you just can't control. It's overwhelming and it's spinning, but your brain is trying to make sense of it, and it's actually draining you. And I think we make poor decisions when we're drained and when we're tired. Another thing we covered in the book is HALT. HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When we make decisions under HALT, usually they're not the best decisions. But okay, let's say right now you are looking to take control of something meaty, some meaty project. For me, anytime I jump into a new project, a new book, a new client opportunity, I get to lead a new team, I have a new keynote, there's an opportunity in front of me, and I'm going to be proactive and try to make the most of it. I have this formula that I like to utilize. It's different than the courage formula. I don't really have a name for this formula, but I call it really the path to realization. And my hope is that if this helps you through whatever new that you're working on or project you're working on, take it and run with it. And I will say, you got to be real careful with this one, but in the past, there was 2 people I'd worked with that just by working in that environment, that's sort of, which was a struggle. Well, that's where this formula came from. So this path to realization, the formula is really looking at visualization and creating time where you can visualize what the future looks like. And coming from the idea business, often a brief would land in my lap and I'd have 100 days to figure it out. Now, time doesn't stop, right? So you're constantly visualizing, dropping ideas into the future, and you're thinking about am I going to throw an idea out there that's too early? Or worse, am I going to miss it and it's too late? I mean, there's a little bit of a Goldilocks principle here, but your job is to not create like, oh, Google Glass, we completely blew it, or, an idea that we just missed on, we were too late to the market. So the concept of visualization and visualizing what success could look like, and anyone in the ideation space is doing this here. How am I throwing an idea into the future? And as time continues to move forward, is society ready for that idea? And how do you stay just ahead of it, but not overwhelm them on that idea? And so in the past, I've had, this specific person I used to work with who was like all visualization, all visualization. And in some ways, it's a great skill to like dream big and go big, but it was also like very, very reckless. And it's like, whoa, hold on. Like before we lock ourselves into a 5-year lease for 500 people, like what are our steps to actually getting there? Like we haven't realized this. It's like it was all visualization without any speculation. And as you go through your journey, it's thinking about visualizing what success looks like, but you also have to have the speed bumps of reality on the speculation side. And I do think that visualization without speculation is just a dream. It's not realistic. And if you're visualizing constantly, but you haven't put those speed bumps in, you're working on a pipe dream. And I'm all for being optimistic, but I also am for being practical on how we're actually going to get there. And then I had another person that I worked with, same business, that was like the sky was falling all the time. I mean, there was like no visualization. Everything was speculation. It was like this person was the catcher of our business, right? They had the masks on and all the protection and everything was like just the sky is falling and pessimistic mentality. And it was like just speculation and just waiting for someone to bring something to the table just to shrink the idea. And so it's funny, a visualization without speculation is a dream. Speculation without visualization is a nightmare. It is, you need to have like a little bit of play, a little bit of where can we take this? Let's really think through what happens if this runs, its course over the next 6 months, 9 months, a year. So again, if visualization and speculation are the two you got to play with, I do think visualization plus speculation equals a path to realization. It is seeing it, it's putting in the speed bumps, and then realizing it. And then at some point, you got to move from this thinking about it to feeling it and actually doing it. And the more you do something, hopefully the more you iterate off of it, and the more you start to realize what's good for the project. Almost every project I do, whether it's a keynote or a book, it is, you've got to do it for the first time. I remember on Headamentals getting the book out there. Like when I say out there, I mean like we had a draft, and I'm like, this is terrible. This is like, no, we're not helping anybody with this book. I'm embarrassed. My brand's going to be ruined. And then you had to muster the courage to move out of visualization and or speculation to we have to get this into the hands of a few people we trust. And I remember sending it to multiple business leaders. Gives me a good opportunity to give some shout outs. David Lawler overseas, who was president of Kellanova. Audrey Berger, who was president here at Primal Kitchen in the U.S. Nicole Zuby, who, the people that I trust in business. Nicole was the chief people officer of Spartan Nash. We sent it to about 10 leaders. I sent it to about 10 leaders on my side. Agnello Fernandez, over CEO of Coat Hospitality. And we learned some more, and we iterated off of that. Same thing when I do a keynote, especially a new keynote. Maybe don't do that keynote in front of 1,000 people for the first time. Find a smaller venue, a smaller room, but you have to do it You visualize what it looks like. You think about the speculation that could come with it, and that is your path to realization. All right. We bounced around a lot today. I did want to give my point of view on brand, on the U.S., about knowing our role. What is our role going to be? Are people going to boycott the U.S. when the World Cup comes? I mean, I'm hurt even thinking about it because, one, I love soccer. Two, I want us to. The World Cup, all I've heard is it's like the world's biggest party. And like, we want the doors to be open. We want people to come here and to have an absolute blast. But I'm making the conscious choice on what I can control, at least at the Olympics, to root for our people, root for the U.S., and enjoy what that month is really all about. Last thing I'll say, there's probably someone in your life right now who you truly love that is on the other side of the divide, and they probably feel the same way about you. What are you going to do? How are you going to display some courage in setting up a true conversation where you're listening to them and they're listening to you, and you can find empathy and common ground on what the other person is thinking about what's going on in this country right now? I think the more genuine conversations we have, that's how you build trust. And we're back to where we started on. We don't even trust ourselves anymore. Can we even talk to ourselves anymore? Right? If we're saying that 44% of people say people can't be trusted here, what can you do to go to people that you do trust that might be on the other side, have the conversation that needs to be had, learn a little bit, find some empathy, share your side too, so we can move forward. All right, guys. Hopefully you like this little rye rant, as I'm going to call it. We're approaching 25 minutes here. We'll go back to our regularly scheduled podcast next week. Do me a favor, if you like these types of rants, please let me know. Everything we just talked about, I'm doing too. This is the first time I've done a podcast by myself. So if you've got feedback for me, if there's a topic you want me to cover, if you like this format where I can weave in one of these every other month, please let me know. Email me at ryanberman@couragebrands.com and let me know where I can be better. Or if you like the format, what you think I should talk about, I'm all for it. All right, folks, get after it. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.